live, previewing tonight's NHL slate. Only 4 games on the slate today. So in theory, this should be a relatively short stream, but with Sean and I talking, you never know. It could be a nice long stream. We'll talk puck all day long. As you notice, it is myself, Doug Shane at Bankster 17, Sean Goodwin, big number 55. US Hook, Monsieur, US Hook. Where's Hook? Is that French? Did I speak French? Did I do it? Did I pull it off? US Hook. Where is Hook? Hook's off doing his other job, or hanging out or doing something, but he'll join us eventually in the future. Not here today, unfortunately, but you can go follow Hook. Hook's one of our NHL guys. You follow him at Hook Monster over on the Twitter machine. And listen, if you want to find all of our content, you can find it at banksterdfs.com. $3.09 a week get you access to everything we do, all the sports. You see them on the screen. You get it all for $3.99 a week. Articles, player pool, Slack chat. Today I sent out this Google Slide video this Google Slide presentation for everyone to get their NHL lineup set. We'll try to do different and fun things. And PGA's in full swing. MMA just posted. Tay posted his article for that. Jeff's been posting. I think he posted like 3 soccer slates this week. College sports still happening. Of course, NBA. We got the Super Bowl tomorrow. NASCAR comes back. When's NASCAR? 2 weeks? Next week? I think NASCAR's back next week. And then you've got PGA. We've got the full slate. And then Chris is posting his picks for the showdown slates in our Slack chat. You get it all. $4 a week. You can also follow us on YouTube. Just pop my name in there, Doug Shane. Like, share, subscribe. Click the notification icon so you know when we're going live and when we post new videos. All that good stuff for under $4 a week. Mr. Goodwin, we have got ourselves a 4-game slate today. And it's a really interesting slate. A couple games that I'm actually interested in. One that I'm shockingly interested in, so given the teams involved, but one that I'm shockingly not terribly interested in. So we'll get that one out of the way first. I should probably be on the correct screen for that. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're talking about the New York Islanders coming back off of a pretty long layoff, about a week since the Islanders last played. Fairly low total in this game. Islanders slight favorites, assuming those goalies stay in place. We have no current lineups posted, so we're going off where the Islanders were the last time they played. Sean, welcome. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. I hope you're doing well. What do we got for this game?
Yes, happy Saturday afternoon. A little change up from our Friday night action, but this is probably a little better because we try to get a little more update information. And this year in NHL, with COVID and everything like that, it's basically NBA-like feel to it. So we try to get up to date as much as we can. Obviously, the Slack chat right up to lock is where you want to be, as we're all keeping an eye on pregame warmups and beat writers and stuff. Islanders Pittsburgh. Of the 4 games, obviously my least favorite game. I really want to use the Barzal line. Tristan Jarry is not good, but Pittsburgh has not played awful defensively. It's just that Jarry's not good. So I might end up with a Barzal line just because. We were talking about it before we went live. We don't like a game and we get off it and it's going to end up 7-6 or something crazy like that.
When I wrote the article, this is my least favorite game as well. I just can't get behind Pittsburgh. I liked, just like you, the Islanders, but the Barzal line going up against most likely going to get line matched against Crosby, and he's a great offensive defender, as you have taught me, which is a little scary. But back to your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, we don't have the lines. Once we get some lines, hopefully we get some lines, before lock, like not 10 minutes before. Nelson and Eberle on the second line intrigue me just for the fact that they won't see Sid, and we can attack the depth of Pittsburgh's forward lines. But at this point in the day, with no information, and of the 4 games, it should come in as the lowest scoring game. Varlamov's probably going to be going for the Islanders. The Islanders played tough, defensively. Pittsburgh I think Pittsburgh just sort of. They've had a good decade-long run, right? Sid and Malkin is just like Gino's just not. He's looked awful this year. It's Gensel's he's doing Gensel things. He's shooting. He's dangerous. It's a one-off maybe. Other than that, of the 4 games, I don't see me going here really much at all.
Like for me, the biggest issue I have with this game, from a cash perspective, because we do like to look at cash game, is just the lack of consistency other than Barzal. I mean, you've got a couple of defenders that might be worth using. Noah Dobson has been pretty good this year for us. He's not putting up massive points, but he's had games where he's getting down and blocking putting up some shots on goals. Not as much over the last few games, but you saw earlier when against Washington for sure he made a couple of game run. But there's just a total lack of consistency on both teams. Even if you pull up a guy like Sid Crosby, who's cheaper than Barzal. Like, remember when Crosby was in the $8,500, $1,000 range for so many years, and now, like, look at these scores: 1.5 points, 5.5, 4.5. Like, it's all sandwiched in between a couple of decent games. The upside's there, but for me, that screams GPP play more than anything. If we think this game could be under-owned or could maybe pop off with the Islanders being off for about a week, though we have seen teams come back off of a like Vegas last night. Not to compare the Islanders offense to the Vegas offense. Go Knights, go! But this is the right matchup because Yari is not a very good goaltender. But again, getting to Malkin, I mean, 5,800 for Malkin should be like a lock and load roll with it. But what's he done? He's broken 10s once in the last 10 games. Like, it's just not there. On defense, we don't know if Letang's going to play. Even if he does, look at the points per game, 6.8. I put for our cash pool on this one. I kept it real tight for this game. Dobson's there, though he's not a preferred play. Barzal's there simply because he's been so consistent. And if he can get that shot volume up, he should be okay. And then I got Pierre-Olivier Joseph. If Letang doesn't play, he should get second unit power play time. He's been okay. And what site you're playing, he's been priced up and down. I saw him on Yahoo as one of the 5 most expensive defenders a few days ago. Now he's back to a value. He's definitely a value here on DraftKings. We have to kind of ignore those 3 assists against the Rangers, but he does have a little bit of volume and that ice time, 25 and 6 minutes. If Letang is out, I think if you're spending down at defense, he's one of the guys you look at. He is in that pool. Am I missing anything? Like, I know we said we don't love this game, and I know we tend to spend a long time on each game on this, and we're trying to tighten it up and move on, but I don't want to dismiss anything that we might have missed here, Sean. Is there anything else on this game that should be looking at, or is it comfortable to move on? I do like Varlamov in net. If we want to spend up, he's my spend up option in net, but I'm not spending up today goal either.
No, it's everyone in this game pretty much that's not named Matthew Barzal has been basically boom or bust. So they're definitely not safe for cash. Barzal's in that, he's priced in that range, that sort of no man's range there, right? Like, he's $1,000 cheaper than Draisaitl, Matthews, McDavid tier. Then he's $500 more expensive than Tavares, who's in a much better matchup. Then you can drop down to Lindholm at 63, Horvat 62. Right, Monahan's 53, Couture's Barzal. If I go to this game, the Barzal line would be where I would go, but we'll see. If we get some lines, we'll see. But Dobson,
if Barzal was priced similar to Lindholm or Horvat, I mean, in that case, he's a little more playable. But when I saw that price, and he was in my initial cash game build because I think there's enough value to put him in cash, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but McDavid and Matthews are both in my cash lineup, and I was able to get Barzal in there as well and really load up in cash on centers. But then you start to look at those prices. I mean, it's just, and Sean was just talking about it, but Tavares and Lindholm and Patterson and Couture. I mean, there's just so much value cheaper than Barzal at center. I just don't think we have to. I don't think we have to go there. Like, I don't think we have to go there today.
The one thing I will say though, if Josh Bailey is on the top line at $3,500, he makes a great one-off. He's a great value one-off as in your GPP or whatever. If you need like a cheaper winger, $3,500 is way too cheap. Josh Bailey's a 5K player like that. He's another example of DK not getting it right. But I mean, we'll need to see that he's on that top line. If he's there, I like Bailey as a value one-off.
Yeah, I had him in my cash for a minute. I've pulled them out since, simply because their guys at the 3K range, I think, are a little more consistent. But I absolutely agree pricing on Bailey. Good price for him. Good price for him is definitely as a one-off type of a play in a GPP. Simply because Yari is so bad in that. And he's had 3 out of 6 games. Yari's been at negative fantasy points. That's a guy you want to attack, but just neither offense is too dynamic. We've said a lot about a game we don't care about. Let's talk about a game we do care about. Toronto and Vancouver. This game comes in with a 6.5 total. Toronto, big favorite. I think they're the biggest favorite on the night. A great offense, but anytime Freddie Anderson is in net, the other team is viable because Freddie Anderson is not a great goalie. He's on a very good team, so his stats look okay, but he will give up. He'll give up goals. He can give 2-3 goals without a problem, and Toronto could still win 5-3. So we can look at both sides of the game. I did not update this the way I wanted to. I had Tanner Pearson initially in my cash pool, but then right before we went on the air, Vancouver released their lines, and Pettersson went from the second line with Pearson up back to the first line with Besser and Miller. So I actually like Miller at 5,400 a little bit more for cash, and we can make it work. I do like Simmons as a guy playing. If he's continuing to play on the second line and continues to get first power play unit time, I think at $2,700 he's got enough upside for cash with goal scoring. I love Matthews. He's just wildly consistent, and there's just two superstars on the slate, and I'm going to play them both in cash today between him and McDavid. Where are you looking at for this game, Shawnee?
I'm going right back to the Tavares line. I will have that stack again. Hopefully Simmons is on there again. They kind of, I'm hoping they might go a little overlooked with Spets hat trick from the fourth line and getting all the attention and stuff, but they still played. They were really good on Thursday. It's just because with Matthews and Spezza going off, like Johnny had 4 shots, he had a goal. Willie had 3 assists. And is probably pretty quiet because, like I said, everyone's going on Spezza, which is great, perfect.
You don't have any interest in Spezza, do you? No. I mean, the minute that's fluky, right? It's totally fluky what he's been doing. Look at when you look at his time on ice. I mean, he just doesn't get enough minutes. No. He hasn't done. He had 2 good games this year, and they happen to be in the last 3 games. Right? He's just not a guy we're going to look at, right?
No. I mean, no.
You take Simmons or Spezza in this case
all day long.
Okay,
right?
Me too.
You got to look. It's going to happen. It's NHL variance, right? Simmons is going to be on the second line. Simmons is on the top power plays $500 cheaper, right? Like, if people want to chase, Simmons only had 1 shot last. I don't care. It's $2,700. If Simmons is $3,700, okay, then maybe I start. Okay, what else do we got? But for $2,700, I was 100% Simmons on Thursday. I'll probably be close to it again. Just you can't for that price the role he has. Yeah, no.
He's one of my favorite he's probably my favorite under 3K forward on the slate because the upside. He's incredibly goal dependent, but at his price point, can we take a goal dependent player, Sean, at his price point in cash because it's $2,700, or is he GPP only for you? Because I've got him in the cash pool.
You can absolutely throw him in the cash. You can throw him in cash. He's not going to kill you. A couple of shots, it's not for $2,700, right? If he puts up a donut, for $2,700, you're getting Matthews and McDavid and Burns in your cash lineup anyway, and they'll more than cover off. And if he pops a goal, boom, you're laughing.
Even better. Let me throw something at you, which we didn't prepare for, and it's not at the games we've talked about yet. But I've got 3 guys in that 3K range in the cash pool that I really like. I got Simmons, I got Donato, and I got Dylan Dubé. Of those 3 guys, how would you rank them for cash? Because I think they all have their own upside for GPP, and I think it depends upon how you're stacking. And I'm not sure we're one-offing any of those. But in cash games, how would you rank those 3 guys? I got 2 of them in my cash lineup now, but I'm interested how you're ranking them. So it's Dubé, Donato, and Simmons.
So for me, it would probably go Simmons, Donato, Dubé. Now Dubé it's close. That's the thing, right? Like, is scheduled to be on the top line with. Is he still going to be there? Practice. He was still Lindholm to Chuck. But I like Dylan Dubé. He was a player I used a lot last year because he does have offensive ability.
Nobody uses him ever.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, he does. Yeah, you know what, Dubé? It's it's close. Like, it's close.
Yeah, for sure. Dubé, but you don't think any of them are bad cash plays? Is that it? Let's go that route. I mean, they should all, because they're all in the pool. They should all be in the cash pool at this point, right?
I mean, looking at the game logs there for Dubé, I mean, he's taken a couple shots each of the last 2 games. Donato is probably going to be the one that's maybe overlooked in that little trio that you mentioned. but but same thing, right? He hasn't had he hasn't had a couple shots in 2 games. He had an assist last night. But you know what? I mean, it's what it depends on your you might need $100 here, you might need $100 there. It all depends on
Absolutely.
what you got. So see
Yeah, it
where it
really
goes.
depends
I mean, I
on
don't
your
mind Donato or Simmons with if you're going Simmons, if you're going Tavares and Cash or Simmons Matthews, maybe, right? They hook up a power play goal.
That's what I was thinking.
You're
Because I've
laughing.
got Matthews, and as I like the hook, I like the correlation. Plus, it would allow me, the way my cash lineup is built, it allows me to upgrade a little bit at defender if I wanted to, if I went down to Simmons. And so, because like right now I have Donato and Dubé in my lineup, but I'm also spending down a little bit on defense. I don't know that we want to go too far off our path here, but I'm spending down a little bit on defense with Bouchard, and so I could then upgrade if I wanted to. If I went down to Simmons, because it's a $300 difference. If I go down to Simmons from Dubé, I could go up to Valimaki, who you wrote up a little bit in our slides today. And so I just think that combination could be there. It's not just the 1-to-1. I think that was a great point you brought up about what money do you want to save? Who do you feel more comfortable with? Where do you feel more comfortable with those players? So it's really like, if you go down to Simmons, what are you doing with that extra $300? And if you're not doing anything with the extra $300, then maybe you like Donato or Dubé better. But if you don't, then it's okay to leave that $300 on the table too, if you have to, because it's not that big of a difference. Just a little bit of strategy thrown in there. But I got way off track with the game that we were covering.
No, but if that $300 makes a difference from a second line power play guy to a first line power play guy somewhere else in your lineup or whatever, then that's what you're going to do, right? Those guys are basically direct. Those are three sort of exactly the same players. Direct swap, right? Either way, whatever fits your build.
Who do you like on the Vancouver side of this game? Am I right in the move that I made in the pool today to go off of Pearson, who has 5 shots in each of the last 2 games, but he was playing with Pettersson. Now Pettersson's back up to the top line, and Pettersson, we talked about a couple weeks ago, he was going to get himself going, and he has. He's improved his play, but now we got Miller and Bankster playing along with Pettersson, and I just think Miller at this price point at $5,300, I just think it's too cheap the way that he's playing, especially going up against Freddie Anderson. His shot volume is pretty decent for the most part. He has a couple of stinkers here and there, but for the most part, Miller gets you the shots. Is that a smart move, or should we or do we go back down to Pearson and play with the extra money there? Are both of them viable for cash? I'm curious about your thoughts on the Vancouver side of this game.
Yeah, Vancouver's underpriced, I think really for what they can. I mean, Toronto's not the 90s. Like Toronto's not are they better defensively this year than they were last year? Absolutely. But as you alluded to earlier, Freddie's still going to give up 2, 3, possibly 4 goals. I'm sort of liking Pearson actually back down on that second line, because now they're going to avoid Muzzin and Hull. I can't believe I said that, but Muzzin and Justin Hull have been the shutdown pair for Sheldon Keefe this year, and they've played really well. The problem with that second line, though, is you got Louis Eriksson on that. Louis Eriksson hasn't been good for 5 years. So, I mean, Pearson
min price, second line time.
Yeah, I hope people go there.
Not in the pool. He's not in the pool, by the way. Just to be clear, he's not in the pool.
I mean, Pearson at $3,700, Miller $5,300. I mean, Vancouver's just too cheap across the board. As far as I'm concerned, Pettersson just hasn't looked. Now, if Pettersson in GPP, absolutely. You want to go. Sure. You want to run that top line in a GPP. You go for it, because I mean the offensive talent is there. We used this line a ton last year and they were on fire. Vancouver's just been a mess this year. They've just been a disaster. I prefer Horvat personally. Especially, like, I have no problem maybe going Horvat and cash, but I mean even Horvat's been a little boom or bust. Like it's
that's why I was looking more at the wingers, just because of the consistency of the shots. And Pearson's just been the 2 games, whereas Miller's been a little better for the entirety of the season that he's played. I know in the first couple of games of the year, but he's just been more consistent. So I was definitely not thinking of the centers for. I was more thinking along the lines of which winger. And I guess it depends upon the build, because you seem to have spoken well about both Miller and Pearson. If you need the savings, you go Pearson. If you have the money, maybe you go and use Miller, because there's a lot of value on the slate. But I just think running like Miller, Couture, McDavid, Matthews, and Burns. I mean, you could run all those in the same lineup, and I think that's a lot of consistency. And and upside. And I I didn't see where I'd want to only spend up if I was going to go with Pearson over Miller at that point. But it sounds like you're not against using Pearson either.
No, I mean, he's put up 5 shots in back-to-back games, right? He's shooting. He's on the he's going to be on the second line. I mean, it comes down to, as always, like where's your bill? Like you got Kevin LeBanc, who's $100 cheaper. You got Josh Bailey, who's $200 cheaper. Would I go them over top of Pearson? Probably. Right now, okay. The upper range from that, like you're jumping all the way up to Evander Kane, I think at 5,100. I don't really have any much interest.
In mid-range, that 4K range is rough today. That 4K range is real rough today.
It is looking pretty bad. There's really nothing in there at all, especially for cash, that I would touch.
That's why at that point I just up to Miller. I mean, Nylander at 55 seems kind of low too. Speaking of the same game, I know he's not super high, but I mean he just has so much talent around him, and he just gets a ton of assists. And I mean, like, he's been playing well. So,
well, that's the thing.
He's also in the pool as a preferred play, Nylander. I mean, it's we don't want to talk past him either.
Tavares and Nylander played really well on Thursday night, but nobody knows. But everyone is because Matthews tore and Spencer's hat trick. So I'm hoping they're going to go on. They'll come in at under 10% tonight. They'll go overlooked and they'll put up their 30, 35 points, 40 points combined, and then I'll take it. I'll take the savings, and then I'll load up on Connor and Monahan and Burns and Kane and the boys later on.
Fair, makes sense. All right, I think we got a good read on this game now. Let's go to our next game, which is the barn burner between Anaheim and Sharks. But we can't even make fun of it because this game came alive in the third period yesterday and ended up being a pretty good game. But for me, if we're hunting value, this is a great game to hunt value with. We've got Anaheim's a slight favorite, which I'm not so sure I buy into. 5.5 total. Dubnyk, it should be Dubnyk. He's already confirmed. And we think Miller should start for Anaheim since Gibson was in net last night. There's some cash options here between Couture and Donato. Even Brent Burns at 6,500 is way down from where we're used to seeing Burns, and he started the season a little inconsistently, so that's good. DraftKings hasn't made the changes. I like Cam Fowler. I know you're on Shattenkirk instead. But I know we're not really all over Am at all to begin with. Grant filled in yesterday for Getzlaf, who was ruled out right before the game started. If he's still in there at $2,700, it's a decent play. We like Dubnyk and net for cash, and so we're kind of staying off of Anaheim as much as we can. So there is value to be had there. But I like to stack in cash. I say that all the time, but as of now, my current cash lineup has 4 Sharks in it. Not for the correlation necessarily, just because we're hunting that value. With Couture is way too cheap at 5K. Donato, you spoke it up. No one's going to think to play him, but he's been really consistent on that second line. Burns is underpriced, and Nick's got a good matchup. So it's hard to get away from the Sharks today, and I don't think as many people are going to be on them with big teams on the slate. Pittsburgh's a public team. You've got Toronto's a real public team and a good team. Edmonton is a public team. Calgary has name players. I think San Jose goes overlooked in this game on this slate, even as a short slate. What do you thought, Sean?
Yeah, they're way too cheap, which is great for us because I still think they go overlooked, so we can load up on the value. And that late 2-game slate, people aren't going to play them either. People are going to go all over Calgary and Edmonton. Right, so you could that late 2-game slate. You can get some Sharks in there, and it will be sneaky for you, right? But I mean,
you know what this game reminds me of, Sean? Sorry to interrupt, but this game last Saturday we came on and talked about John Gibson at $6,900 going up against St. Louis. We said, but St. Louis, there's no one over $5,300 for St. Louis, and there's just so much value with Shen and Schwartz and Perron and all that, but we still like Gibson, and then St. Louis came out and blew the doors off that game, right? They blew out Anaheim. This game, the pricing at least feels really similar. A lot about this game feels similar to that. Do you kind of get that vibe from this game?
Yeah, I remember that game last week. That was St. Louis's first game after they were on a break too, wasn't it? Yeah, I forget about
it.
That.
It was, and it hurt us because even though we both had said, boy, if we're not going Gibson, St. Louis is a good play. And then we played Gibson anyway, and I had 100% Gibson that day, which was not my favorite day of the year. I should have diversified a little bit, but like this game's got that kind of feel to it, doesn't it? Especially again with the Sharks pricing, it feels like they're just the right price to blow up a little bit in a good way. Good blow up.
Well, I mean, I don't know. The DK's price San Jose like they're going up against the 2009 Ducks or something, right? Like I don't get the like. I mean, it's like Evander Kane at $5,100, right? Like Burns at Burns is 6,500 seems about that feels about right for Burns. I think that's about
But when
accurate.
he's playing at his best, he's an 8K player, Burns.
Oh, he has been. I mean, he's still shooting. He's still shooting a ton, right? Like he still burns, right? I mean, now he's not shooting as epic as he has, but I mean, if you look at his game logs, I mean, he's putting up 3, 4 shots at minimum. Like he's had one game with one shot, and everything else has been at least 3 every game this year, right? And if we're gonna get Ryan Miller, I mean, if Gibson started, even if Gibson were to get to start, I wouldn't change my outlook on San Jose. I would still roll the same
Same.
Sharks.
Those SABs totals are just great. So what's missing? So if the SABs totals are still high, right? His shots and his block shots are still super high. So what's missing from Burns? Well, the goals and assists, those are more fluky. When we're building it, not completely fluky, but it's like touchdowns in football. We're looking for volume. When we want a wide receiver, we want a guy who's going to get targets and get yards. Same thing with the defender. With the defender, we want guys who's going to get SABs, shots, and block shots. And if they happen to get goals and assists, which we know Burns is lethal from the blue line, that's what we're looking for. So really, there's positive regression coming for Burns. He's got the minutes, he's got the volume. He just has to put the points together, and this is a great matchup to do it. And you're getting him at, I'm just scrolling down here, the second cheapest he's been all season.
And he's like, I think him and Yossi are the top 2 defenders in ice time. I'd have to double check. 27 and a half minutes a game. 27 and a half. Like that's nuts. Like he's almost playing 30 minutes a game. The man's 35. But it doesn't matter. He just keeps doing it. Like ice time, DFS, playing time, ice time, seeing the field, right? This is what we want.
Minutes equals money, just like NBA. Minutes equals money, especially for a defender.
Like there's nobody else on the slate that you're going to pay that for who's going to come close to that ice time, right? Like Connor is one of the highest ice time for 4. He's at 22 minutes, right? That's 5.5 minutes less.
Yep.
Right?
And listen, as a Knights fan, it is ingrained in my system to hate the Sharks and to hate Brent Burns. Even I cannot get away from him today. He is a lock and load play. I did want to pull up the stats for Kane. Volume hasn't been quite as wild as it is sometimes for Kane. He only has 2 games over 3 shots on goal. Like he has a bunch of games of at least 3 shots on goal. Again, I feel like positive regression's coming. Sharks team, they're just too aggressive. Especially their top 2 lines, aggressive group of players, and they're going to, you got yourself that floor. Even Donato, he's got the assist last night, but prior to that, I mean, 5 shots, 2 shots, 2 shots. There is some aggression there, and I talked about it a few weeks ago. I've been waiting for the Ryan Donato breakout season for years. Maybe slowly but surely coming. The talent's been there with the kid. I've got him in my cash lineup. I just think this is a great spot for him. You mentioned Noah Gregor in the notes section today on our slide. At the bottom of the slide, there's a notes section for those of you who are BanksterDFS.com members. The article's kind of within the slides, and even though it was my day, Sean went ahead and wrote all those notes, which is amazing, and they were great. And I believe you mentioned Noah Gregor. Can you talk a little bit about who he is and why you put him in there?
Yeah. So I mean, the Sharks are high on this kid. So I mean, San Jose. I mean, they're with their cap issues. They got to find some value. They got to find some kids that are going to that are going to be able to play and be able to actually contribute. And so this Noah Gregor kid, I made a point of I tuned in last night. I was watching a little bit. He's a difference maker. He actually, he's not shy. He's not afraid to shoot the puck. And he's on the 3rd line. I mean, if you look at his game logs, right? He's had against Colorado, he had 1 game with no shots, but he's 3 shots, 4 shots, 2 shots, 4 shots, right? He'll couple goals, $2,600.
Yeah, it's super cheap.
And a fantastic game in, right? Like I mean, it's Anaheim. Anaheim is Ottawa West or whatever, right? Like they're like Vancouver, right? But he also gets power play time, and he's going to get power play time with Kane, Meyer, Donato, right? He's $2,600.
Yeah,
right?
You get a real cheap power play 2 stack with Kane and Donato and Gregor out there, and you could still put Burns with that, even though he doesn't generally skate on the second power play, because he's going to get time during even strength with all those guys. So you can still get that upside. That's a good play. He was not on my radar. So that was a real good note to put in there. And that's the kind of stuff you get at banksterdfs.com for under $4 a week. Little notes from Sean that'll, and from all of us, for all of our different articles and pools that we do, you get all this stuff, and our Slack chat. We come up with stuff like that all the time. The things that Sean puts in that Slack chat that end up hitting that are like completely wild is absolutely amazing.
The Slack chat definitely is a kick. And trust me, no one's playing Gregor tonight. No one's gonna have that kid. Nobody.
That's a nice little. Would you use him as a one-off if you're stacking other teams just to save a couple of bucks? Yeah.
So that late 2-game slate, if you're gonna load up on the Calgary Edmonton game, fit Gregor in as your winger to load up on, McDavid. If you want to load up on the Calgary game, Gregor's the guy that'll help you make it happen. And you know what? He might pop a couple of points or a couple of shots, and if he gets it, even if he gets an assist or a goal, boom, you're lopping the field.
Maybe he pulls a Connor Glass from or Cody Glass. Sorry, now I keep saying Connor. I keep calling him Connor Glass. Maybe he pulls a Cody Glass from last night and get you a nice score for a real cheap price because he's skating with some real talented players. That's the kind of stuff you got to find, and that's the stuff we're digging for every single day.
That you value guys that play with stars.
Are we?
Forward.
I know we've got guys in the pool for Anaheim. Are we going to honestly spend any time playing Anaheim? I mean, you look at the ranks, like about Florida being bad against defenders. San Jose has been pretty bad defensively all year. But, I mean, Anaheim's just not good, right? Like, they're just not good.
If you're not going Dubnyk, Terry Henrique, Shattenkirk for a little power play correlation, that'd probably be about the extent where I'd go. You got to see if Getzlaf is out. We're not going to. The problem is you're not going to know about Getzlaf until pregame warmups. So I mean, if you're going to go there for the 7:00 slate, put Grant in your utility or have a backup plan in case Getzlaf goes. I'm not exactly sure.
You got to be digging. You got to be digging pretty deep if you're using Anaheim, even on a 4-game slate. I mean, I'm probably using Pittsburgh and the Islanders well before I'm using Anaheim. Again, that is the true kiss of death. They will score 9 goals now, but that is they're just not.
They scored 4 goals against Martin Jones last night. Everybody knows Martin Jones is awful. Like Martin Jones is not good goalie. So
I want to see.
I hope people load up on the Ducks again tonight, thinking it's that's the way to go. I hope people do it. Be my guest.
I don't see that happening. Let's move on to the main event of the evening. That would be Calgary. Edmonton, 6.5 goal total. Calgary is the slight favorite. Edmonton, I find it wild that Edmonton is almost never a favorite in any game that they play. They're the underdog always, and I don't get it. They're such a powerful offense, but they're not the world's greatest defense, and they're not overly deep past the first couple of lines. They have superstars, and that's about the extent of it. I like this game for cash. I do like, obviously, like I said, I'm rolling Matthews and McDavid today. When if I can go stars and scrubs in this one, and I'm not going completely scrubby, I'm going to do that. I just think on a 4-game slate, you want to get the best guys in your cash lineup. Barry's been playing great on the power play. Bouchard came up and played in the last game. Lineups aren't out yet, but if he plays again, he had 4 shots on goal, real nice score, got power. I think he had power play time. If I'm not mistaken, he was on the second power play. Not that Edmonton rolls their second power play unit out for all that many minutes, but if he's on the ice, I just think at that price, he's a talented kid. And I like that top line for Calgary. The back end for Edmonton's not great. Again, Calgary's the favorite in a game with the 6.5 total. I know Sean is more into the second line with Monahan and Gaudreau. I like Lindholm. I think he's been playing well. We've talked about Dubé, and Kachuk just has been really good this year. Like, to me, he's become the star of this team. Correct me, fix me, come out with something else, knock me down, Sean. We're on this game.
Oh yeah, you're definitely going to need lots of pieces of this game for sure. I love to chuck in Lindholm as well. I'm just, a lot of the times what I do is I kind of go with price, right? So basically for Calgary, right? So you got Lindholm at $6,300. Monahan is $1,000 cheaper, right? To Chuck $6,700. Gaudreau's $1,000 cheaper. For me, they get a little bit of that's giving them a bump because that extra $2,000 is going to allow me to pair them with. I can add in Connor, right? I can do a Connor run back with them. I can go JT and Willie from the early game and run Gaudreau and Monahan. It allows me to do a lot more with my lineup that I personally like. But if you want to go Lindholm and Kachuk, absolutely go ahead.
I mean, can't you go Onslaught and run all 4? right? You can run all four. They're power play one. All four are playing that first power play. I mean, I've got a lineup that's got all four of them in there, and that's, I love running power play lineups though. So that's
in the
maybe,
late.
I don't know if that's my weakness or my strength, but
I mean, you can do that. I mean, you can do that. That's a strategy, absolutely, especially on a 4-game slate. It's a smaller slate. If you wanted to do that, that's absolutely viable. On these smaller slates, you have to look at doing something like that. On the late 2-game slate, 100%, I would run a 5-man Calgary power play stack, no problem. At least
sure.
at least the 4 main guys for sure, no problem. Because you need that. If you get the goal, you need the apples, you need the assists, right? You need the goals and the assists. On the 4-game slate, late game hammer, it's slightly different. I believe it was Monahan. I believe I was able to fit. I sent you that lineup earlier.
Yeah, I think you had Monahan, and didn't you have Valimaki, or did I have Valimaki? I'm still tinkering with the cash lineup.
So here's another thing to get if you want to get a little different, be a little more unique. Valimaki actually sees the most even strength ice with Monahan and the Gaudreau line. So everybody's going to use Anderson for the power play correlation, which that's obviously that's a very viable strategy and the one that we use. The flip side of that strategy is the guy that plays with him the most even strength. What if Calgary only gets 1 or 2 power plays? And you got Valimaki, who's $3,100, who's going to see 8, 9, or 10 minutes of even strength ice time. Well, guess what? Valimaki, fires one in from the point, and Gaudreau tips it. Boom! You are lapping the field because nobody's playing Valimaki with Monahan and Gaudreau.
And Valimaki's hit the block shot bonus in 40% of his games, and he's had at least 2 shots on goal in 50% of his games. This guy is a hidden SAB star, and that's what we're looking for. He hasn't blown up anything yet. He hasn't popped a 20-pointer yet, and he had the 1 game over 10, but he's at the 6, 7, 8, 9 points. I mean, at $3,100, you don't need much more than 8, 9 points. You're doing great. 3x is a really good score in hockey. 2x is where we're looking in cash. So that's 6 points is pretty well. He hits 3 block shots and he's there right off the bat.
And nobody's doing that. And I guarantee you, nobody's doing this. Nobody's going to do that. No one's playing Valimaki with Gaudreau and Monahan in the second line, right? Nobody thinks that way. Everyone thinks power play, which, like I said, I mean, absolutely. You want to, you get a power play goal. That's, you want both assists. You want the goal on both assists in the power play for sure. But Anderson plays a fraction of the time with them and on the power play, right? But like I said, Calgary only gets 1 power play or maybe 2 power plays. Now, if they get 7 power plays, fine, it's whatever. But that's something you can't bank on. You can bank on even strength ice time. That is a given. That's the stats bear it out because I looked. That's what we do. We dig. We find these things. And Valimaki for $3,100, like Doug said, a little burgeoning SAB star we found, right? Like another guy.
I can't wait tonight for Valimaki to assist on a Gaudreau or Monahan goal, and then for it to have like the 3 block shots and a shot on goal and assist, and for Valimaki followed by 7,500 exclamation points in our Slack chat. Like, that's the kind of stuff I love seeing because it happens. Like, this kind of stuff happens. And if it doesn't happen on this game, it's going to happen because we dig the stats and we find those kinds of things. Big Matt just chimed in. He goes, Valimaki and Gregor in. And now I know he didn't do it on purpose, but he called it Valumaki with the U, like Value Maki. And I almost prefer that. Like, he's our Value Maki. I absolutely love that. And that's the kind of stuff. And Big Matt knows he's been with us for a long time. He knows that, we're coming up with those plays, and no one digs more into hockey than Sean. I trust Sean more than anyone else in the industry. No one digs deeper than Sean on the NHL. And he says Valimaki. Like I said, I'm changing my cash lineup to get him in there. I'm gonna run Valimaki and Simmons over Dubé and Bouchard. I just think that's a smart play, and that even strength time is huge. Do we have to get too crazy with Edmonton today, or are we just rolling the big guns? Is that where we're at?
Edmonton is the Baltimore Ravens of the NHL, right? Like, it's you run Lamar, or not. Is it Baltimore? Who is it?
Yeah, Baltimore. It's Lamar, Andrews, and Marquise Brown. That's who you run in a stack. Though you can add Dobbins now. Dude's amazing. But Edmonton's the same way, right?
Right. You run Connor. You can now. On the 2 games, so we're covering both slates for you here because that's what you get from Bankster. On the 2-game slate, I would run Connor, Hopkins, and Draisaitl together, say, right? something weird, like play right, and bring it back with with Goodrow on the wing or something. Play Gregor, Valimaki. You can make this work now. And on a 4-game slate, you can do it as well, right? You can run Connor like I did that. What did we do that first game against Ottawa? I ran an Oilers onslaught, right? Had Connor, had Draisaitl, and it paid off huge. Like we were sweating there for the 10K right down to the end, right? We were looking for like one more shot, one more goal, and we were right there. These are all viable strategies, and Edmonton's their offense is just so concentrated. Like there's nothing on the third line, there's nothing in the fourth line, there's nothing really beyond Barry or Nurse, and then Bouchard if he's gonna, for his price, I like Bouchard if he's gonna be in there. I will check some logs for even strength ice time, see what Bouchard, he's partnered up with, because you could run a little combo that way, right? You could do a little Draisaitl Bouchard or Connor Bouchard or Connor Hopkins Bouchard, whatever. There's a few ways you can do it, but Edmonton's easy. It's Connor all day long. It's Connor all day long, and Hopkins.
I mean, I'm just playing around here, building a little bit. I mean, you can run some things. I mean, you got an Edmonton line. You got some of our value plays with Gregor and Simmons and Valimaki. You get Dubnyk out there, and that leaves you the option. Oh, you want to run Tyson Barrie with them? Great, run Barrie out there with them. And now you've got plenty of money left.
Who you could fit in the utility spot with that bill you just had?
Who's that?
Who's priced? Who were we talking about earlier? Who's priced right there and is the one guy that we might use?
But Barzal?
Yeah.
You could, or you could run Barrie out there, and then you still got $4,200, which gives you, a one-off on a Zucker, who's fine as a one-off. Like, I know we don't love Pittsburgh, but like, Zucker's fine, man. Zuckermania could run wild, but you could absolutely make this kind of thing work. And we're not going to give full lineups because we're not supposed to give full line.
If you were going to run McDavid, if you were going to run that, I would probably add Barrie and complete it, right? Because if you have those three guys and Barrie gets the goal, right? You're kind of, because there's guys who will use Barrie,
exactly,
right? So I would, if you're going to go that way, I would probably go Barrie. Add Barrie.
Like you can, but there's so much value. Again, you could run who I think is the best goalie on the slate out there, Freddie Anderson, and they still got $3,200 left. And who do we say is sitting there at $300? We've got the option of Donato and Dubé, and like you can absolutely run an Edmonton onslaught and be fine. Like super fine. Like it's not even like I'm stretching to find a Louis Eriksson at $2,500. You've got guys we can use. I happen to not mind. Wait, I put Freddie Anderson in there, and that's not who I wanted. I wanted Varlamov. Whoops, that's ugly. That could have been. Don't put Freddie Anderson in there, folks. That is not what I meant. You've got Varlamov now. Oh, I have $3,400 we can play with. Like you can get so comfortable with your player. Like, doesn't this look pretty?
Right.
Yeah, I know. I'm not drunk. I swear. I just. But I mean, look. I mean, you've got the options. I happen to like Cam Fowler. You could run out there. You could run Joseph. I don't like him, but David Backes has been playing really well in games. Just I know he's a fourth line guy, and it's total fluke city here. But like from Anaheim, Backes has 11 shots over the last 2 games, and he blocked 3 shots yesterday. Like just saying, for $3,300, no one will have Backes. I promise you that, and we know he can score from his time in Boston. Like we know.
He'll have Backes. Guaranteed.
They're guys. All I'm saying is there are guys. This works. I got to clear it because we're not supposed to post full lineups, which I did not. But there are options, and it is that's a pretty stack. So and on the 2 game, there's even more. You can make it work. So yeah, good stuff. Let's slowly start to see where we're at. So this is the cash game pool. I'm putting it on here. We're posting this on YouTube. We're live streaming on Twitter and YouTube right now. And normally this is part of our, behind our paywall, for Bankster members only. But you know what? We've been talking about the pool so much. I wanted to give you a free shot look at the pool, see what it looks like. Like this is what we do. We talk about it. We look at the slate. We build the slate. And now you've got yourself a player pool. And this is what we do. We pull from this pool and we build our lineups from this pool. We try not to waver too much outside of it. Though, again, I talked about like a Jason Zucker. Like, yeah, he's not in the pool, but I'm not totally against him. These are the guys we're looking at. You've got our core with the double, the double stars next to it. And you've got yourself, a lot of options. We're going to give you options at the top of the price scale, the middle, and the bottom end. And we're not going to give you a pool that plays every single player on the slate. Like this is it. This is a pretty condensed pool. 4, 8, 12, 21, 23, 20, 27 players, like 27 players to build your lineup. Like that's what we're looking at. And you know, this is where we're going with. Again, can you add other players? Sure. If you don't like some of these players, don't use them. But this is kind of how we can take a look at what a cash game pool is going to look like. Some tips for cash. We talked about this. We talk about this every time we go online for our stream. High floor players. We've been talking a lot about SABs, and you can find a lot of SABs for cheap because people don't look at that. They're looking at goals and assists, but you can get ice time and SABs and correlation from cheaper defenders, and we love to do that. Not to say you don't have to spend up at defense. I got Brent Burns as a core play. We don't have to stack in cash. You probably shouldn't stack in cash on a 4-game slate. I have 4 Sharks in my lineup now, but one of them is the goalie, so I don't really count that. And I'm not doing it for correlation purposes. The price was just there. I do like using defenders in a utility if there's one that works, and I want to spend up at winger, and I want to spend down on defender. Like a Valimaki could be a great guy for a third for your utility, except I'm running 3 centers today. So there's different builds you can do. We want shot volume for goalies. Goalies tend to not be like, I always go goalie last. Like I don't ever lock in a goalie first. I find a high price goalie I like and a low price goalie. Like yesterday, I like Vasi, and I like who else did I play in net yesterday? Was Florida yesterday? Was Drieger in net? Yeah, Drieger was in net yesterday. So those were my 2 different goalies, and depending on how my lineup build worked, I was able. Some lineups I went with Drieger, some lineups I went with Vasi. Both turned out okay. I knew they were both going to face some shots, but I'm not going to lock in a goalie first because it's really variant. We use pricing and efficiencies, and we don't care about ownership for cash. This is what our GPP pool looks like. Again, you might find a different way to do it. This is the pool that I built. Sean's pool is going to look a little bit different. He will talk about the players he has in Slack. We always do. We share ideas on lineups. By no means are these the only lineups that you can use, but this is where I see things going for me. And we give you the price of all of those, the correlations and how much it's going to cost you. And we talk about how we can build that in our Slack chat. And again, it shouldn't be a surprise what we're showing here because we talked about this on the stream. And then some tips and tricks for GPPs. One of the things that Sean's really taught me to do is start entering some qualifiers with your GPP lineups. I found both on FanDuel and DraftKings, the winning score for qualifiers is significantly lower than most tournaments. And qualifiers, if you have not a huge bankroll, qualifiers are a great way to get you entered into tournaments that will have a higher prize pool than you're normally used to seeing, and higher entries. There's an NFL qualifier that I hit earlier this year. I don't know, it's like $1 to enter the qualifier. I ended up winning, and it got me a $250 entry into a tournament. I would never play a $250 tournament on my own at this point. I play. Just last night, I hit 5 tickets. I had a Vegas lineup that worked, and didn't win the GPP at cash, but it hit first place in 4 of the 5 qualifiers, and it hit third in the other that only needed 5 spots to pay. So it was great. Hit a bunch of tickets for now tournaments that I might not have otherwise entered. Sean is the king of qualifiers. I think last night he hit 4,350 qualifiers. He's won a dozen or whatever. But I mean, he put it in a lineup that did not win the GPP, but it won almost every qualifier he put it into. Great way to increase your bankroll. We love onslaughts, especially power play lines that get you exposure across multiple even strength lines. I like to do that. Again, if you take a look at our GPP pool, I've done that with you do that with Edmonton. I did it with San Jose. I did it with Calgary. I love power play lines that get me access to the top 2 even strength lines. That's a strategy that's worked for me. And then Sean talked about it earlier. Don't be afraid to get weird on small slates, especially you got your 4-game slate, but we've got that 2-game slate. It's okay to get weird. Getting weird is fine. You don't want to get stupid, but you want to get weird. Like, don't play a guy who's going to get 4 minutes ice time. He may score a goal, but that's not the smart way to play. But a guy like Gregor, guy like Dubé, who skates on the top line, is only 3K. A guy like Donato, who people aren't going to use. A guy like Valimaki, who people aren't looking at. Those are the kinds of weird plays you can make that, have some correlation. Sean's Gaudreau, Monahan, Valimaki stack is going to be played by nobody, and it makes a ton of sense. And that's just weird enough to work on the 4-game or the 2-game slate. And I think that's great. Sean, any other tips and tricks that I missed out on that you would like to share? Because I rambled for a few minutes there.
No, I mean that's basically it, right? I mean, correlation across DFS and everything is what you want, was what you keep, but especially in hockey, right? In a 2 game slate, 3 game slate, 4 game slate, if you got the goal scorer, but you don't have the 2 guys that have the assists, and there's other guys, you're getting lapped, right? So yeah, you got the goal, but you're getting lapped. Now in cash, if you get the goal and there's other guys, so be it. But you're not worried about that.
Yep.
GPPs, you want that. GPP you build for ceiling, cash you build for floor, right? That's putting it in a nutshell, right? Now your GPP lineup could go for 180, could go for 40, but you need to build for that ceiling, right? And that's what we're looking for. So I mean, on a 2 game slate, you run the 4-man power play, right? Or 5-man power play. Don't be afraid to do that, right? Go for it.
And speaking of, Big Matt actually has a question about that, and I think it's a great question. And Sean, I'm gonna let you answer because I think I know the right answer to this one, but I want to hear what you say. Do you find the power play lines score more or better than full strength lines? So I guess what he's saying is, would Sean rather stack a power play line or an even strength line, which is going to have the higher chance of putting up a bigger score?
Power play. I mean, there's some variance to power play goals, right? Like, I mean, first of all, you need power play opportunities. First of all, right? Even strength lines are even strength lines. They're gonna play 60 minutes. They're gonna play their 20 minutes together, regardless, right? How I build and how I look for is, I mean, my first look is if I get a full line that is also on the power play, that's bonus, right? I hate the teams like Torts and Columbus and some of these guys who have their power play made up of one guy from line 1, one guy from line 2, 2 guys from line 3. That you just can't do anything with that.
That's the Doug special right there. I love that. See,
Yeah,
it's fun that you don't, and I do. I think but I get where you're coming from because you want the correlation.
I want the full 3 guys, right? Like, but Boston won, right? 3 guys are all in the power play, right? Dallas, for the most part, over the last couple of years, you run Seguin, Ben, and Radulov because usually they were a power line too, right? That being said, power play is sort of the secondary thing that I look at. I want the power play correlation, but I need that even strength time, because that's they're gonna have 15 to 20 minutes at even strength, and they're gonna have maybe 2 to 4 minutes on the power play, maybe, right? There's 2 power play units. You got to remember, for every Boston one that plays 95% of the power play, there's other teams that split it pretty evenly. They get to that 1 minute mark, and they're looking to swap off, right? So,
and I would say too. I mean, would it not make sense that that if we're looking at the power play lines, right? If you're on a power play line, your chance of scoring is higher, right? Because you've got the man advantage. But there's, as you said originally, there is no guarantee you're even going to get that opportunity if you're stacking a power play line, because you got to get the penalties, and then you actually have to convert, and then you have to make sure they're on the ice. And so there's a lot more ifs on a power play line. I like the potential upside of a power play line. I like that it keeps the collective ownership a little bit lower. And I like that it gives me access. If it's from 2 different even strength lines, I get access to all that, but I'm also missing out when they're scoring on even strength from getting both assists. So that's, you've kind of got to play it intelligently there. Like there was a couple years back when the Blackhawks had one of the worst power play or one of the worst penalty units I've ever seen in my life. They were giving up every time the other team was on a power play, they're giving up goals. I stacked the power play line exclusively against Chicago that year because it was working every single day. That's not going to happen all the time. So you've got to be careful with that. I mean, a couple nights ago, if you stacked the Edmonton power play line, you did really well when they went to town on Ottawa. But for every time that happens, there's another day when like the second line's going to be the one getting the scoring. So I think you got to be a little careful about that. And so I guess it's dependent upon that.
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
It's basically right. Like
it all depends. And so after all that, it depends. Whatever. All right, folks.
It's all power play. Just remember, power play is a bonus. If you get the power play correlation, that's a bonus on top of what you were already looking for anyway, right?
I like that. That's a good way to wrap that up. Folks, don't forget, you can get all of our content over at banksterdfs.com, $3.99 a week. Get you all of our articles, player pool, Slack chat, every sport that we cover, and you can see it all on the screen. And besides MLB, they're all kind of in full swing right now. And NCAA football, we got everything happening right now. And we got the best in the business, former writers of the year, current writers of the year, and many future writers of the year for all the various sports. Banksterdfs.com, $3.99 a week. Also, please make sure you head on over to YouTube, search my name, Doug Shane. like, share, subscribe, click the notification icon so you can know when we have videos and live streams coming out. If you have questions, you can find us at big number 55 for Sean over on Twitter, at Bankster17 for me. And again, banksterdfs.com, $3.99 a week. Have a wonderful Saturday. Enjoy your hockey evening. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow. We'll be back next weekend with another look. But every day you'll find us in our Slack chat. Every day you'll get that articles. Find us at, once again, banksterdfs.com. Have a great day.